The Cowboys 2025 schedule is out, and myself, Zach Wolchuk, alongside the Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus. Man, we were having a blast yesterday on our show, the G-Bag Nation on 105.3 The Fan. Also, you can catch on Audacy 2 to 7 p.m. Central Time. We were just gathering like everything we could, trying to piece together, looking at other teams' leaks. Like, okay, do they have a void here in their schedule? And I think we did a good job. I think by like 3:30 going into your Krusty's Corner segment on 3:40, we pretty much had this thing nailed, Brian.
Yeah, you know what, Zach? It's funny. I was on with Watch Lombardi last night. We were doing our show, and you kind of drugged me into figuring out the schedule because I guess, okay, if I can tell a real quick story there was a guy that texted me and he goes, "Man, you're one of the best when it comes to getting the schedule." It's a buddy of mine. And I said, I don't know. This year, I just don't know. I've always had, access to working at the Cowboys and always kind of figured out ways to get it when I wasn't working at the Cowboys. And, piecing it together can be hard. I mean, there are a lot of clues. I thought you did a great job of kind of, okay, wait a minute, week 6, they got a game. Wait a minute. But you kind of drugged me into it because I really wasn't going to get into it like I normally do. And then you started in the pre-show getting excited about, well, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, all right, Zach's into it. Let's see what we can do. And, and then you start texting your buddies around the league and you're like, okay, well, oh, wait, I have a friend in Arizona. Oh, wait, I have a friend in Denver. Oh, I have a friend in, and you start kind of, if you're not asking somebody for the whole schedule, but you're asking for just one game, you could kind of piece it all together. But I thought you did a tremendous job of drawing me into. I really honestly, I wasn't interested. I was just going to wait and see what it was. But your excitement level got me motivated to try and help. So I think I got to give you a lot of credit, and I appreciate, like you said, on our segment, it's 105.3 The Fan, the G-Bag Nation. Krusty's Corner, I just went ahead and just said, okay, this is what we got. And we got it down to the last two. I think it was a Carolina and Green Bay. We were trying to determine which was going to go where. And then all of a sudden you got that final bit of information like, okay, Carolina's here. It's got to be the Raiders here. And sure enough, it all worked out the way it was. But like I say, I wasn't really excited about it. Like I said, I had a friend that texts me and says, "Man, you've done this for 11 years. What do you mean you're not interested? What do you mean you're not?" And I'm like, well, I'm just not. I'm just, whatever happens, we'll see how it plays. I know who the teams are, but there was a certain element of it yesterday where I did enjoy working with you and trying to figure it out. And like I said, we got it by about 3:40. We had that thing done. So,
yeah.
Kudos to everybody around the league, though, that kind of was finding information out, posting their stuff, because it was kind of a fun game in a way of like, you have certain clues like, okay, what do the Packers got going? Well, they don't have anything week 4, but they got 3, 5, and 6, and you're kind of like, okay, maybe that's a possibility. And then you kind of get another clue. So I think the league is okay. I don't know about you, Zach. I think the league, they have these big release things that they do, and the teams do some tremendous work. I know Derek Eagleton, the Cowboys, take a lot of pride in their schedule release and how much fun they make it. But I think the league, in a way, kind of likes people like you and I trying to guess it along the way. I think they're okay with like, okay, let's see if they could figure this thing out before we actually let the NFL Network or ESPN or somebody like that release it.
Yeah, and the Cowboys, they did their whole stream yesterday, which was fun. And then their whole video release, they're saying, Micah goes, okay, well, now it's time for the schedule. Well, we've been releasing it the whole time. And they go back and they were showing clues the entire day of like which week, what was the schedule, when were they playing the Eagles, when were they playing the Bears, etc. So the Cowboys actually had some fun with that themselves without us even knowing, which made it even cooler. But yeah, I mean, I guess like we were talking with Gavin Dawson, who hosts with us, and Gavin's like, I can care less about the schedule release. But the day, it's like, I can't help myself. I don't think the one thing that I've wanted to make sure when we get into this business and you're actually covering the team, how the sausage is made. I don't ever want to lose like the love and the passion.
No.
Side of it, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate like I said, I'd done it for so many years. And then Vosh even said it to me last night. He says, man, you have a responsibility to these people, and when you put it that way, I was thinking like, man, I'm running out of people to talk to. And then all of a sudden, I remember people I could talk to. All right, let's see if we can put this good. So yeah, I do appreciate you kind of getting me on track again. When you and Vach say you have a responsibility to these fans, and you know what, you are damn right about it. We do have a responsibility to the guys and gals that take in our content, every week. We appreciate you guys so much. So yeah, when you put it that way, I'll never forget this. Now I do have a responsibility to do this and try my best to make sure that the people who consume our content get exactly what they need.
Well, you're one of the best for a reason. That's why we love you here on Love of the Star and 105.3 The Fan and the podcast you're doing.
Thank you too.
All the platforms that you're on, my dude.
Oh man, I enjoy them all. But thank you for yesterday. I was kind of feeling sorry for myself because I'm like, you know what, I don't have I just don't have it like I used to. And then all of a sudden I realized, well, maybe I still do have it a little bit. But no, still got it. But thank you. No, let's get into this thing, man. Pretty interesting journey we're about to go on.
It is. So obviously week 1, we knew like that game's going, that's the Eagles, the opener on Thursday night. I think one of the first takeaways I had, and I always love picking your brain from the front office side of this. What are you looking at as a front office member, as the team? I assume it's probably primetime games, maybe bad weather games. Maybe it's, the short weeks. And the Cowboys are playing a bunch of Thursday nights this year. I think they got Thanksgiving. They've got the Thursday night right afterwards against the Lions. And we can break this thing more down like week by week here, but just in general. And then they've also got the Christmas Day game at Washington, which is a Thursday. So if you include the opener, that's 4 Thursday games. Now, some of these are short weeks. Some of them won't be, considering the opener. That's not really going to hurt you much. But that can be a grueling schedule when you talk about 3 Thursday games at the back end of your schedule.
Yeah, and you never know where the health of your team is going to be. And we've talked about this a little bit before, when sometimes you play teams that, like playing the Saints last year in week 2 was an absolute disaster. Playing the Saints in week 12, that's a W. It's just, sometimes you catch these teams that are their absolute best early in the season, and then you catch them at the end, and then they're god awful. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are a team, traditionally it's like that. Dallas has been kind of that way the last few years too. Really kind of some poor early starts, right? Get offense kind of struggling a little bit and all that. And then next thing you know, you kind of figure some things out and you play better. I know defensively it was that way last year for the Cowboys. Remember the early season games, the Saints, the Ravens, just awful games. And all of a sudden, you kind of found out some things about your team and played a little bit better in the second half. But I think from a standpoint of looking in, you asked me the question about like week 1. I think the Cowboys do have an advantage in one way of the new coaching staff. That is something that, how much can the Eagles, and they'll spend now from, everybody will go on vacation starting on June 15th, or actually you have the OTAs mini camps, you go up to about June 15th. And then all of a sudden, everybody goes away for a month. But, you've kind of now, when you get back, you're thinking about, okay, this is the opening game. How are we going to prep this thing? I mean, teams know now what they know. They've seen the schedule and they have an understanding, so they can really prep this thing. So there'll be a lot of work that put into that week 1 game while they're getting ready at training camp even. Mm-hmm. And so, but, you can understand Matt Eberflus, but how does Matt Eberflus work with these particular players? How's he going to work with Micah Parsons, with Fowler, the cornerbacks? How's he going to set things up that way? How about Brian Schottenheimer, play caller? Yeah, can you go back and look at some of the things he did, some of his other stops that he had along the way, Seattle, Jacksonville? Can you look at those? Pretty much a pretty different team there with different personnel groups. The addition of George Pickens with CeeDee Lamb. There's a lot of things that Philadelphia is potentially going to have to prepare with, and they'll be working a little blind. and maybe the Cowboys might be working a little blind too with the Eagles with a new offensive coordinator there as well. So both teams kind of going to have to figure out what's super important to us putting into the game plan and what is going to be overkill. And you just don't want to have the overkill. The thing about having the rhythm of a season is what you need: goal line package, short yardage package, medium downs, first down, what you get a rhythm of that and you break that down. Opening game, you really don't have that. And you always talk about some of the stuff too that happens to you with, special teams. Is your special teams, there's really not, the live tackling of the preseason and stuff like that. The games are good, for that aspect. But are your special teams really ready to play in week one? So it's kind of one of those toss-up games, when you really, really break it down that, Philadelphia's going to have some difficulties preparing for you, and there's probably just going to be some difficulties you're going to have preparing for Philadelphia as well.
No question. And you bring up special teams. That's another great point because we talked about the Eagles. Like maybe you're catching them at a good time. They're breaking in some new coordinators. Cowboys have a new special teams coordinator too for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
No more Bones Fossil.
Yeah,
6 primetime games for the Dallas Cowboys this year. Week 1 at Philly. Week 4, Sunday Night Football against the Packers. Goodness gracious. As soon as the green and yellow come to town, I start to get nightmares. Week 9, which is a far cry from your days, Brian. I mean, the script is completely
Oh, no, man.
this.
My gosh. Yeah, you're right about that. We could never, ever, ever beat the Dallas Cowboys. And we had some really good teams. Now, we would own the San Francisco 49ers, but we would show up in Dallas at Texas Stadium, that big crown in the middle of the field. Brett Favre would throw the ball into the stands about the first 3 or 4 passes, and then you found a way to maybe get ahead, and then all of a sudden Troy makes a play, Emmett makes a play, Michael makes a play, Jay Novacek makes a play, and they get a sack on you, a fumble, whatever, and then the things would completely turn. But yeah, very, very difficult for the Cowboys when I was for the Packers to play the Cowboys. But then kind of the script is flipped during the Aaron Rodgers administration. That was really a very difficult time. Some of the greatest playoff games you could ever imagine. The Dez game, the game at at Texas, at AT&T Stadium. I don't know to this day how Aaron Rodgers held on to that ball after that blitz. I don't have any clue how that happened. The throw that he made on 3rd down, and then just the total ass kicking that you took, as the second seed. That still is fresh in a lot of people's minds as well.
No doubt. And then a weird situation here where you've got 2 Monday night games. And you pointed this out to me yesterday when we were putting this together. And
I thought we made a mistake. I thought we made a mistake when this happened. I really did.
Weird, right? Because typically, I mean, look, the Cowboys usually only get 1 Monday nighter anyway. Sure. Now you've got 2 Monday night games in 3 weeks that's broken up by your bye. You're at home against Arizona on Monday night. And I'm sure Troy's happy about this, right? Troy's looking for Cowboy games. But you get Arizona at home. Kyler Murray never lost at AT&T Stadium. And then bye week, and then week 11, you go to Vegas for the first time. That's going to be a hot ticket. At the Raiders, at Allegiant Stadium, their new look team with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith and Ashton Genty, who I know Cowboy fans are excited about, even though he's not a Cowboy, but a local kid. How bizarre is that? 2 Monday nighters in 3 weeks.
Yeah, like I said, Zach, when you and I were breaking the schedule down or trying to get the information for it, when it went, I'd heard from Arizona, my guys there were like, okay, Monday night, I think it was week 9.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, great. Pencil that in. Then we're trying to kind of figure out the bye. It was either like we were looking at week 6 or week 10. And I'm thinking, okay, we figured it out. It's going to be week 10. And then it turned around. Then I had, a Vegas source that told me that, okay, Monday Night Football, week 11. And I thought there was something wrong. I honestly thought that I misheard somebody. But no, that's how it actually worked out. In all my years of football, and again, I've been doing this since 1992, I don't remember, and I'm sure there's somebody that's listening to this broadcast that's going to say, no, Broadus, it happened when, and I'm sure it could be a simple look up and all that. But off the top of my head, I've never seen a team to have 2 Monday night games within 3 weeks.
So
I just never have seen that. So kind of a scheduling quirk there a little bit, making sure that they, They get Arizona a primetime game, and they also get the Vegas Raiders a primetime game as well.
Then you get week 14 at the Lions. That's right after your Thanksgiving game against the Chiefs. That's a primetime game on Amazon Prime, Thursday Night Football. And I guess here's where the problem is. All these networks want the Cowboys, right? So, if you're going to play on Thursday on Thanksgiving, and then, all right, we're going to reward Netflix with the Christmas Day game with the Commanders, which will be week 17. It's like, oh, what about Amazon Prime? Are you going to be left off? They want the Cowboys too. Al wants to get pumped up with Herbie. Yeah. They want to be able to see the star. So there you go. You get the Lions on prime time. You follow that up with the Vikings on Sunday Night Football, NBC. And then I mentioned the national games, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So just to get on the soapbox here real quick, I saw yesterday you got South Lake Carroll Zone. I'm ashamed, Chase Daniel. I'm ashamed, sir. You should know this better than anybody. You're a Texas kid. You don't start this crap where the Cowboys aren't America's team. Okay. Look, it's not even like I'm defensive over this America's team nickname. This was dubbed on the Cowboys before I was even born. All right. I'm a 91 baby. But there is no doubt who America's team is. You're 7-10. You're coming off a 7-10 year. You had Cooper Rush against Joe Burrow on Monday Night Football against the Bengals, and they're pulling the best week 14 or whatever it is Monday Night Football game in the history ratings-wise of ESPN. The Cowboys are the king of the castle. They are America's team. I go to the Dominican Republic. I'm wearing a Cowboys t-shirt, Brian, on the cruise. What happens? I got tons of Islanders coming over and saying, go Cowboys. You can't go anywhere in the world and not run into Cowboy fans. It's not America's team. It's the world's team. There's a reason why they're the number one most valuable team in the world. People either love them or you love to hate them, and you love to watch them lose. So Adam Schefter puts out, the most on-demand games per Vivid Seats. The top 3 are Dallas Cowboy games, Brian Broaddus. So people can, it's the Chiefs. It's the Patriots. You know what? Those teams come and go when it comes to how good they are in these dynasties. The Cowboys can absolutely suck, and it doesn't matter. They're still on demand. And if you need more evidence as to what is America's team, it's right there. So spare me with the conversation, Chase Daniel or LaShawn McCoy or anyone else that wants to get into my mentions about this on the X. You're wrong. You don't have any leg to stand on. The Cowboys are and always will be America's team, Brian Broaddus.
I'll tell you what, that was impressive. Thank you very much, Jerry Jones. That was well said. Well said.
Thank you.
I think Chase Daniel's learning what media is all about in this world. You know what I'm saying? I think Shady McCoy is the old Philadelphia. I can understand Shady McCoy because of his Eagle love and all that. But Chase, I think Chase is learning that sometimes you have to be a little controversial, a little hot taker every once in a while. We've all learned, you and I have been in this business now long enough that you get 50 to hate you, 50 to love you. You're doing pretty good radio. You can live with that.
We can live with it.
But I think, but it's about time for the Cowboys to reward the loyalty of these fans. It's about time.
Amen.
This is going to be a difficult year. And I mean, difficult in a way. The Cowboys could play very, very well. It's a difficult schedule. I think it's a difficult schedule for the Commanders, difficult schedule for the Eagles. Playing the NFC North, I don't think is an easy thing. I don't think playing the AFC West with the coaches they have in that division, I don't think that's a particularly easy. Think about just think about what's going on out west now with the coaches you're having to deal with. With the Andy Reids and the Pete Carrolls, Jim Harbaugh. Think about that. Think about how how much that's really changed. Out there. The dynamics of the division, and like I say, you're dealing with one of the greatest players to ever play when you're talking about Mahomes, and now you're dealing with that on a short week where you don't really even practice. That game is going to be. I think the schedule makers really, because we say the schedule makers didn't do them any favors. I think it's because the teams that they're playing are not doing them any favors. When you're playing the Eagles twice, when you're playing the Green Bay Packers, when you're playing the Chiefs, when you're playing, when you're playing I throw the Chargers in there because I think they're a better team with Jim Harbaugh as their coach, and you're playing them late in the year. That's one of those games. It's kind of, man, you're kind of looking at it, you're thinking like, okay, if you're going to kick some games, and I mean kick in a way of, hell, we might not win these games. It might, but the games if you have to lose a game, losing to Kansas City is no shame on a short week. Losing to the Chargers, I don't think that's a shame. But, the games you need to find a way to win, the Detroits, the Minnesotas, you can't kick that Commanders game. You can't kick that Giants game at the end.
Chicago, that's a game you probably feel better that you're a better team. You've
got to find a way to these divisional opponents. You might not be better than Detroit. The last couple of years, Detroit's been outstanding. Detroit, even with all their banged up roster the way it was and the way they were fighting and winning games, that you're like, how are they doing this without Aiden Hutchinson and defensive tackles? And it was just crazy how they were doing that. But I keep looking at that Kansas City game on Thanksgiving. Both teams will be at a disadvantage. It's not a common opponent. And the week before, the Cowboys, fortunately, are playing a game at home. Yeah. There's been a time where the Cowboys, the last several years, have had to be road team. Imagine if that game was in Philadelphia at 3:25. Then you have to play Kansas City Thursday on a short week. That would be a nightmare because you're rolling in at 4:30 in the morning on Monday, getting ready for that game on Thursday, a Thursday afternoon game. My gosh, that game's going to be tough anyway. And we don't know what's going to happen injury-wise. We really don't. We just don't. But if you just evaluate it on paper, this division, and I'm talking about the NFC East, has a difficult task having to deal with the NFC North and the AFC West. That is not going to be fun. And then dealing within your own division.
Yeah.
Dealing within your own division is some years it's Cowboys have a great history here recently. Dak Prescott dealing within the division. The division very well could be won by who finds a way to beat Kansas City, who finds a way to beat the Chargers, or finds a way to go to Lambeau Field and get a victory, who finds a way to take Detroit down at home. This division, I'm talking about the NFC East, could come down to a game that you absolutely didn't feel like you were going to win, and you find a way to get a couple of those, and next thing you know, you've got 12 wins, and you find a way, you got the division. The other team had 11 and you had 12 because you found a way to beat somebody you probably shouldn't have beaten. A Kansas City, a Detroit. There's the Cowboys. To win this division, you're going to have to beat somebody that on paper right now, that as we go through this and play that fun game of win, loss, win, loss, win. We play that game every year as we look at the schedule. There's going to be one of those games where you're going to have to, maybe two games, where you're going to go, we're going to call this a loss, but all of a sudden when you and I are doing the post-game show, amazing victory. I don't know how Dallas beat Kansas City on a short week.
Yeah. You're so right. Where are they going to steal one? Let's do that. I like that segue. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's do that, Brian Broaddus. Now you got me excited. Calvin Watkins, our buddy in the morning news, actually did his own version of this. He went through and did the win-loss every game. Let's see.
Oh, we do it. We do it. Every year we do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. All right, let's do our Love of the Star version. What do we think the Cowboys are going to do as we navigate this thing? At Philly, week 1. We going with the win or the loss here?
I'm going to say it's probably going to be a loss.
Yeah, I'll agree. All right, let's go 0-1. Giants at home, week 2, the home opener. Russell Wilson, most likely the starting quarterback. They're breaking in Abdul Carter. Micah Parsons and him probably going to do a jersey swap. Cowboys own the Giants, Brian. I'm thinking that's a dub. You're 1-1. What say you?
Yeah, this is what's disappointing about this game against the Giants, because I think straight up you actually beat the Giants. Giants have added some talent. Giants have gotten better. Maybe later when these two teams meet at the end of the year, Jackson Dart's the quarterback, at the game at the Meadowlands. But right now, what's kind of got me kind of a little like, damn, missed opportunity here. That game against the Eagles is September 4th. The game against the Giants is September 14th. That's 10 games.
Yeah.
Boy, if you're going to give me a 10-day rest or 10-day between, give me somebody other than the Giants. So I think I could beat I could beat. Now, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
the schedule
could we flip the Packers game? Could we get Green Bay week 2?
Give me somebody where I could kind of heal up, kind of regroup, do what I have to do. But yeah, Giants, I think that's going to be a win.
It's a great point about the 10 days off, 100%. And the Giants, look, give them credit. They could have a nasty pass rush. I mean, if they're going to beat teams, it's because they're reckoning with that front four that they've got. Week 3 at Chicago, you do catch a break. The last few times the Cowboys have had to go to Chicago, it's been late in the year. It's been frigid. Last time they were there, it was you had Trubisky running all over you. Jalen Smith's like, get away from us. Don't look at us on the sideline. They're missing tackles left and right. It's the Eberflus revenge game here as well. Chicago's a better team. They certainly added to the offensive line. What do you think? 1-1 Cowboys going up against the Bears in Chi-Town week 3.
Yeah, this might be a little bit more of a difficult game late in the year. Will the Bears' offensive line have time to gel, or are you catching them early in the year? We did the same thing. I remember with Cincinnati. I talked about that. Cincinnati gave up a bunch of sacks to Pittsburgh in week 1, and then came to Dallas and still had some same problems. And they kind of figured some things out. I kind of feel like that the Cowboys are a better team in this regard. I think Matt Eberflus's understanding of that personnel and that group and the players, they made a lot of changes on offense, but I think the Cowboys are a better team than the Bears right now. Later in the year, if this game was played later in the year, it might be more of a toss-up, but right now I'm going to give Dallas the advantage on this one.
Agreed. 2-1 Cowboys back home Sunday night, September 28th against the Packers. Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, they got their new fun toy in Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of Texas. It's hard for me to ever pick the Cowboys to beat the Packers now until I see it. Brian, I need you for words of wisdom here.
Yeah, I think to me this is going to be a very difficult game for both teams. And the Cowboys obviously were just not ready in that wild card game that was played. Dan Quinn was in the process of interviewing or getting ready for an interview with the Commanders. Was his head all into the preparation? I had people in the organization when I said that earlier were like, listen, you've been in the league long enough. You should know better than that. I still believe that the Cowboys couldn't have played any worse than they played in that game, and I like Matt LaFleur as a play caller. I really, really do. I do think Dallas wins this game though. I think that to me with you look at, and the Packers have done some really nice things with their skill position stuff. They've got, they've got their offensive line and stuff. I think that's a pretty solid group of them. We'll see how really things all kind of play out for them. But I think Dallas at home, I think this is a good opportunity for them to kind of show the nation that, listen, the Philadelphia loss was a bad one, but we're going to get back on track. You don't want to get a situation where you're losing to good teams all the time. You need to find a way to make a stand. I think this is a make a stand game for the Cowboys. I'm going to give them the W here.
Hey, I'm here for it. The make a stand game. Your 3-1 Dallas Cowboys on the road against Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets. Justin Fields. We've seen the Cowboys have some weird stuff go down at the Meadowlands against the Jets. You had the 9/11 game back with Dez and Darrelle Revis going at each other to open the season, and then Romo throws that interception. Hell, you had Sam Darnold somehow look really good and get a win over the Cowboys in the Meadowlands. What do you think about this one? Is this a tricky one, or the Cowboys 4-1?
Yeah, I kind of feel like though this game could really go either way, and I'm saying this after 3 really good wins, and maybe the hangover of a great win against Green Bay is going to be maybe too much. I think the Cowboys split these next 2. They're both noon games. Yeah, they're both games on the East Coast. I'd say they're probably going to lose to the Jets and beat Carolina in that regard. So I think the hangover from a great Green Bay victory is going to be a little bit of a problem. And like I say, maybe you got a little banged up. Maybe it was a really, really tough game, which I anticipate it's going to be. And but that noon game, having to travel to the East Coast, I'm going to say a loss to the Jets, but then the following week against Carolina, I'm going to say a win.
I'm with you there. And look, the Jets defense is pretty darn stout as well. They could end up giving your front some problems. We go to week 7. That's a Sunday afternoon at home against Washington. I feel pretty good about the Washington games, Brian. I really do. Dallas played great against them last year. Now, maybe that was a product of your buddy Mike Zimmer, and he just had the answer for Jaden Daniels. But they went into Washington. They got a win when nobody gave them any ability to do that. They played him tough in the finale against Trey Lance. If it weren't for Marcus Mariota saving the day, I'm not really scared about Washington. I think the Cowboys match up pretty well with them.
Yeah, I do. I like the Cowboys at home with this particular one. I think the Commanders have done a good job of adding talent to their roster. I think you worry about a sophomore slump for that quarterback. I don't think you've brought that up a bunch. That's a focused kid.
Yeah,
I don't see him sliding back, reading press clippings, feeling all great about himself. He's a hardworking kid. He deserved everything he got last year as a rookie. They've got Cliff Kingsbury, who does a fine job. Mike Zimmer had their number. Clearly had their number last year. So maybe Matt Eberflus could do the same thing. If you remember, the Bears were a Hail Mary away from winning that game. So I think Flus probably had a good idea how he wanted to attack Jane Daniels. I'm going to say a W for the Cowboys. I'm going to say I'm going to say the following week against the Denver Broncos, a loss.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude.
I think Sean Payton, now that Denver team is going to be a good team. And, rookie quarterback, they played so much better with Bo Nix than I even believed. I think their defense is for real. I think they're, Dallas, the last time they went to Denver, I remember that I think there was a weather delay. I think Zeke had 8 yards rushing. Dak was horrible that game. They got beat by, I think Trevor Siemian was quarterback in that day. I know that was I just don't see Dallas going to Denver and winning that game. I think that's going to be I think Sean Payton's got that game circled. He loves Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, but he always wants to beat them if he can. And I think he's going to make this a very, very important game. I think this is a loss for the Cowboys. But Agreed. Then the following week against Arizona, I think they do kind of turn the tables on the as hard as the Denver loss was. Okay. I think they turned the tables on Kyler Murray on that Monday night game. I think going into the bye, they do get a victory here. I think they realize that, okay, we've got a couple of opportunities here with to get kind of heal up, week 10, need to have a win, need to feel good going into the second half of the season. I think they find a way to stop Arizona here. So I'm going to give the Cowboys a win against the Cardinals on that Monday Night Football.
Okay, I'm with you. So we've got them 6-3 going into the bye week here, and the Cowboys haven't beaten Denver since '95. I mean, that's a tough one there. Yeah. So 6-3, you're coming out of the bye, you're going to the Raiders on Monday Night Football. I know the Raiders are a new look group. I do like the Cowboys to win this game in Vegas on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think coming off a bye, we have no bye history for Schottenheimer. We had bye history for every other coach that's ever been here, the Jason Garretts and those guys. We always had Mike McCarthy. We had bye history. Coming after bye, Andy Reid has a great bye history. I do. I like the Cowboys. I like the Cowboys again against the Raiders coming off that Monday night.
All right, so you've got after the Raiders, Eagles back at home. You see a split with the Eagles, or the Eagles get a sweep for the second year in a row?
I think the Eagles are going to sweep you. I do. And I think that, the Raider victory coming off a Monday night, again, that's coming from the West Coast. That's going to be kind of all of a sudden you get back. It's going to be late. Now you have to jump into a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule. The prep, yes, you get a break that it's a division opponent. A lot was going to probably depend on the health of both teams in this one. Are the Cowboys, are they really beat up going into this game? Did the bye help them? I just think that the Eagles right now are a little bit better team, just a little bit better team. And so I'm going to call that a loss for the Cowboys right there. And I'm going to back it up as I think this is kind of a little bit of a bad stretch for the Cowboys. I think this is where you get a loss with the Eagles, a loss with Kansas City, and now we're having a really important game with the Detroit Lions coming up.
So you're 7-5 then going into that Lions game, and that's one where, look, if the Lions end up being to maintain what they have with new coordinators, the Lions are going to be out for blood. I mean, they've been looking at revenge for the Cowboys ever since that game. I mean, they got it last year on the road, but at home, that place is going to be going crazy.
Yeah, they pummeled you. This is where I think the bad stretch happens. I'm going to say this is the first time that we really, really question, are the Cowboys a legitimate playoff team? Because I've got a loss, and a loss here at Detroit.
Okay, then you bounce back, and you got to get this one. Minnesota at home, Sunday Night Football, rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy, assuming everything's healthy there. Justin Jefferson, whom, hey, if Trayvon Diggs is back, he's played pretty well against Justin Jefferson in his career. The Cowboys do seem to have the Vikings number a little bit historically,
they do.
Brian.
They do. And I'm going to give them the W here to kind of get the wheels back on. I think in the post-game show, you and I are going to talk about what a gutsy, gritty effort it was to beat the Vikings, who are also trying to battle in their division for a spot. So I'm going to say that Cowboys win a tough game there. I think they follow up the game after that against the Chargers. I think there's another victory there as well.
Okay.
So
9-6.
9-6.
9-6.
They're going to need this game against the Commanders. This game against the Commanders turns into kind of like the winner is in, the loser's out.
Oof.
One of those.
I could see that, and that's that Christmas Day elimination game.
It can, and the problem is that Charger. I hope that Charger win didn't take so much out of your team.
Yeah,
But here we are. Maybe you do. Maybe you're right about the Commanders. I'm going to give the Cowboys the victory there. I think they get swept by Philadelphia and they sweep Washington. How about that?
Okay. So now you're 10-6 and you're going to the Giants in what could be, depending on how Philly's doing. Maybe they're running away with the East. Maybe you still got a chance to win the East, or you're just playing for a wild card spot here to go 11-6 on the season.
I think you're going to have to get this thing to 11-6 is what I'm saying. So I do like the Cowboys. If it's a game where things are wrapped up after Christmas Day, I could see resting, and then I could see Joe Milton playing quarterback, and much like he did in that game last year when New England played Buffalo and they got a victory there. But if they have to go win that game, if they need, I think to potentially win this division and potentially win this division, or potentially get in the wild card, they have got to beat Minnesota, the Chargers, Washington, and the Giants. I'm looking at it that way right now.
Okay. So we're looking at possibly 11-6. And I'll tell you,
Brian, feel that way?
I was kind of thinking 10-7. But yeah, I mean,
which game were you thinking the Washington game was the one they were going to kick? Because I think if you kick the Washington game, there's a possibility that you might be in trouble on the. I think Philadelphia. I know there hasn't been a repeat champ in forever.
Sure.
I'm just saying. I think Philadelphia has the ability. They
do.
I think really the roster. Yeah, I think the roster, and I mean this in no disrespect to the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are good. Hell, I'm picking them to win 11 damn games. I just think you're going to go through a really bad stretch from Philly, Kansas City, and Detroit, and that's going to shape whether you're in or not, those last 4 weeks of the season. Either you're going to play great football and get into the tournament, or you could kick those games and we could be talking about the 13th or 14th pick in the draft the following year.
Man, 11-6, I think we'd take that. I think that would be a hell of a season. You're in the postseason. And then, look, all bets are off then. I think we come to expect disappointment, but you never know. That'd be a hell of a season in Brian Schottenheimer's first year. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Zach Wolchuk alongside the Super Bowl winning scout Brian Broaddus. It's time for the Dean Julia mailbag as we put a bow on this one, the NFL schedule release episode, your Cowboys 2025 schedule. Man, we've got them at 11 wins. And honestly, I don't think we homered it up too much. I mean, we've got them taking an L to the Jets on the road. I mean, I think that we tried to do a good job there, Brian, of being open-minded.
Is there anyone though that I mean, I was just trying to kind of navigate maybe the ones that is there ones that I picked as a win that you felt like, no, that's really not what's going to happen? Because you said you were thinking 10-7,
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah, and
Was
honestly,
it the second Washington game?
it was the second Washington game.
Okay, if you lose
and
the second Washington game could very well be that. Like I said, I think that might be a win or go home game. But
which I love.
Yeah.
But the Arizona game just scares me at home. I just feel like
Okay.
Arizona's weird. Arizona has just done a really good job.
Well, that would
Dallas.
put you back to back. That puts you back to back losses.
Yeah.
That would put you the Denver loss and then going into the bye.
You'd be limping going into the bye week there.
I like what you did there.
But hey, you do have Clayton Adams on your side now. And maybe Clayton Adams can give you some insight on, okay, this is kind of what Arizona likes to do. Maybe that can be a feather in your cap going into that one. But Arizona, there's just something about that team. I know the Cowboys got a Monday night game when they went during the kneel down for the anthem and all that stuff. Des Bryant went crazy, breaking about 16 different tackles to get a touchdown, and they're able to steal that. But outside of that, Arizona's been really tough, whether you're going to Arizona or the Cardinals are coming here. I remember the Carson Palmer season. They beat the Cowboys pretty good. And the last time Kyler Murray was here, it was an absolute joke. So Arizona is a tough one for me. That one's difficult to pick. But overall, I'm with you. Like I think this team could get to 10, 11 wins. They're going to be better than I think people are expecting. They are. That's the trend for the Cowboys. When they don't have expectations, they tend to actually in the regular season overdo it. And they overperform those expectations. Okay, first question we've got here. Yeah, go for it, Brian.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, this is from 12th Man Kool-Aid. Kenneth Murray or Jack Sanborn week 1 alongside Maris Leofau, Brian Broaddus?
I think it's Murray, and I think it's probably going to be Murray and Sanborn. I think that Maris Leofau is going to play quite a bit, though. I think, that he's kind of proven that he could be that guy. New staff, Eberflus, this former Bears staff does know Sanborn. I think people are going to be really happy with Sanborn as a player. And I think that we're kind of not giving Murray enough shine. I think there's some gas still left in that tank. That's a physical downhill player, good against the run. I mean, when I was watching him play, I've always seen a guy that was good tackler and physical player. I think that Eberflus finds ways to use him. But I'm going to say that Sanborn and Murray are the guys.
Mike Crum, what up, Mike? We love you, bro.
Mike.
He asked, for me, the Lions game looks like the toughest. They've got 3 straight home games, Giants, Packers, Cowboys. Well, the Cowboys have to go against the 2 Super Bowl teams and then travel to Detroit, which we just talked about. What is your toughest game? Do you think at Detroit is the toughest game on the schedule for Dallas, or are you going somewhere else?
You know what? I'm going to tell you the toughest game, and we talked about it early. I think psychologically going to New York and playing the Jets might be, because if it plays like you and I think, the Eagles game will be tough, but there's no shame of losing to the Eagles in Philadelphia on championship banner. You hope that you're Detroit going into Kansas City that one year and kind of, this would be a great message. If you could absolutely send a message to Philadelphia that, hey, you're not going anywhere. But I think it's going to be a difficult time. We'll see. Both teams are going to have their issues. I think that the Jets game, and this, please hear me out on this. The Cowboys, if the way we picked it, they lose to Philadelphia, beat the Giants, beat the Bears, beat the Packers, probably in a very emotional game. Is there going to be a hangover, or are the Jets at that point going to be 1-3? Are the Jets going to be 1-3? Are the Jets going to be 0-4? Are the Jets going to be 4-0? We don't know. But I think it's going to be a very, if they win the Green Bay game, I think it's going to be in a very emotional game. And I don't know if that's going to take a lot. And they're thinking, okay, take a deep breath. We beat the Packers. Now we got to go play the Jets. I think that's going to be a tough game. Now, if you're talking about just, Kansas City, Detroit, Kansas City in a short week, hell, I don't want to play. You're not going to practice for that game. You're not. Think about this. You're going to play Patrick Mahomes in that offense and defense with no practice for the week. None. Teams don't beat them practicing for 8 days. They don't. So to me, yeah, that could be very difficult. Detroit is going to be difficult too because it's going to be late in the year, and likely Detroit is going to be fighting Green Bay, fighting Minnesota, potentially for some playoff seeding and maybe for divisional stuff. Dan Campbell, they beat you up pretty bad. Now we'll see. Maybe this new offensive coordinator for the Lions does not have the same magic as Ben Johnson did, but I'm thinking that Jets game, and I know people are like, you're a weirdo, Brian. It's the Jets. I just feel like it's going to be tough if the Cowboys beat Green Bay to emotionally get ready to travel to the Meadowlands for that game.
I like the answer. I'm going to go out of the box too. And the one game on the schedule that I'm like, I think it's the Stone Cold Lead block. They're not going to win. No, it's Denver.
Denver, yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Denver is the toughest. They don't play well against the Broncos.
No,
Sean Payton's a hell of a coach. He's going to have them ready to go. That defense is really damn good. You've got a mobile quarterback in Bo Nix who can run around a little bit on you. It's high altitude. It's an uncommon opponent. At Denver is the game that I'm looking at, and I'm like, I'd be stunned if the Cowboys are able to steal a victory there.
Yeah, when that game got on, when I knew they were playing the Broncos, it didn't matter if it was week 1 or week 18, 17, whatever. It didn't matter to me. That was going to be that game at Denver was going to be an L. I just in my mind, I'm like, they're not beating the Broncos. And maybe this is the one game that we talk about that they need to steal, that you and I are doing the post-game show and like, my God, what an amazing victory. Can you believe that you know what, that Brandon Aubrey, who knew that, thin air, kick a 72-yard field goal to win the game?
Yes.
Who knew you could kick a 72-yard field goal to win a game? And that guy just did.
That could be it. That could be the game. Brandon Aubrey breaks the record, Brian. I love that thought. That is another edition of the Love of the Star podcast. You can find it on Audacy and wherever you get your podcasts. We love you. Thank you so much, Brian. This has been a blast, dude. We can talk schedule all day. In fact, we will. We got another 4.5 hours to do so on the G-Bag Nation coming up a little bit later today. Thank you to Peyton Russell, as always, for producing. Any final thoughts before we put a bow on this one, Brian?
No, I mean, it's never as hard as we think it is, and it's never as easy as we think it is. So, yeah, it's kind of fun to go through this, but we know the days, we know the times, and we know the teams. So now it's about getting ready to kind of make that journey, and it should be a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for everybody that tunes in and listens. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. We love you. Hugs and hand pounds. Until next time.